Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I hope you all had a good break. Welcome to our next session. As by way of introduction, my name is Aura Ruth Rother, and I am the recently appointed Head of Marketing at Charity Digital. Now, just before handing over to Ian McLintock from Charity Excellence, I would just like to run through a couple of house rules, please. The session is being recorded, and the recording, slides, and resources will all be available on demand for the next 30 days. Closed captions are also available, and we will shortly share with you in the chat how to enable these. During the webinar, please do ask lots of questions in the Q&A session for Ian to answer and address at the end of their presentation. And please feel free to add any other comments as well, especially experiences or top tips or anything else that you feel that is worth sharing. Why not open the live chat on the right-hand side of your screen now and let us know where you're joining from. And finally, if you encounter any issues with sound or any other technical issues, please do let us know in the chat and we will do our best to get you back online. And now, without any further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Ian McLintock. He is the founder of Charity Excellence, and his session will show us how charities can use ChatGPT effectively, exploring the must-know tips for success, such as the best prompts to use for fundraising, bids, and many other areas that would be useful. Basically, within the next 20 minutes, he will share with you how to become a ChatGPT ninja or expert. So over to you, Ian, and have a great session. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, I'm Ian. For anyone who hasn't met me before, I'm the mad bloke with the bunny rabbits. And basically what our plan is we are going to catalyse the adoption of AI in the charity sector. We don't build empires. We're not into that stuff. We are the biggest and fastest growing community in the charity sector with over 40,000 members. Actually, it's 60,000, but some of them don't there. So what are we going to do today? And the answer is we do not do training. This is a ChatGPT launchpad. Can we have a poll? And the question is, have you used ChatGPT before? If you're wondering what that is on the left, welcome. This is Mini Ding. He is the in-system AI bunny, and he runs the whole ChatGPT services for us. And if you're wondering why he's wearing cool sunglasses on a ski, that is because that's DALL-E and how you can use it. So what are we going to do and how are we going to make you ninjas? Right, 30 minutes, you will start using ChatGPT immediately. We need to do two things. One, understand how the damn thing works. All this stuff about hallucination, don't worry about that. Second one, where are you going to come onto the launchpad? You're going to be the start guy, or are you coming in further down? So we will just feed you into the launchpad at the right point. I've dropped my email into the chat. If you want the infographic that will give you everything, drop me an email. If you actually just want to go and have a look online, you won't get the infographic, but click the link I dropped in there. All of the guides and everything's available. If you go, yeah, thank you very much. I'm a complete tech phobic. All you need to do is register, log in, everything's free, chat to the AI bunny, and Mini Ding, the AI bunny, will do it all for you. So, understanding it. What is the damn thing? It's a large language model, an LLM. This is what the whole new generative AI thing is. Basically, it's got loads of data. Think about it. If it's out there on the internet, it's got it. Event plans, coding information, fundraising strategies, PR briefs. I used it to map critical race theory to the UNHDR underpinning articles and supporting conventions. Took it about 30 seconds. So it's got tons and tons and tons and tons of data. It's got loads of stuff. And it's autocomplete on your phone on steroids. So if you say to it something fairly simple, like, could I have 12 fundraising ideas, please? It goes. What would I do first? Number one, what do I do now? Hop off to the internet, I'll find me a fundraising idea, and it brings it back. And then it goes, what do I do next? And the answer is, that'd be number 2. What am I going to do? I'm going to go and find another one. Hop off into the internet, find another one, bring it back. Fundamentally, that is all it is doing. And yes, mapping critical race theory to UNHCR underpinning articles and supporting conventions is enormously complex, but fundamentally that's what it did. And this is the bit about hallucination, all the other stuff you hear. It doesn't know anything about you or your charity or your plans. So if you say to it, write me a funding bid, it will, because it's trying to help you. It will probably be a US company because it's a global system and it's not a charity system and you didn't tell it that. Or you can say, I'm a UK charity, write me a funding bid, and it will write you a funding bid. If you do that with the bunny and you don't answer the bunny's questions, you will get a funding bid back. The one I did the last time I demoed it, it came back as a women's group. And I didn't say anything about that. That's hallucination. But actually, what the problem is it knew I need to have the charity. I need to know what the charity does. I need to know what the funding bid amount is. And what it did is it did the best it could. It wasn't hallucinating. I hadn't given it the information. So you ask it for anything you want it to do. If that requires information that only you know, you must tell it. And the data isn't up to date yet. It's now up to 2023. But you can't say to it, do a pestle for my charity, please, because it's not as up to date as it needs to be. And it makes mistakes. It just does. It's like everybody. We all make mistakes, and it does. So the 2 lawyers who got absolutely hammered by the court ran ChatGPT and just put it into the court. They didn't even bother to check it. Idiots. Treat it like a draft. And what we say and what we mean aren't the same. And it hears what you say. So if you have a toddler in your life and you're standing in the kitchen and you whisper sweets, there'll be something wrapped around your leg about 10 seconds later. That toddler knows that what you mean is, would you like some sweets? He or she knows that it wasn't about, can you tell me what sweets are? Or how much do sweets cost? Or how many different kinds of sweets are there? Or do you get sweets in China? That little human knows you're offering sweets. Computers can't do that. So when you talk to it, you have to say what you mean. And what can't it do? Funding bids. Why can't it do funding bids? Well, actually, it can. If you're a good bid writer and you know what needs to go in it and you know how to use ChatGPT, it works fine. But the big thing around funding bids is a funding bid is who you are, what you do, what your aims are, what the budget is, who you're doing it for, the details around it, blah, 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 blah. You have to put all of that stuff in. If you don't, it doesn't work. And of course, the problem for lots and lots of small charities, the marginalized guys, the ones that we fight for, they often don't know how to write a funding bid. Well, if you don't know how to write a funding bid, ChatGPT is going to be a bit of a fail. That's why we've got the bid writing bunny. If you log into Charity Excellence and you speak to Mini Ding, he will ask you 17 questions. And when you've answered those 17 questions, he's got everything he needs. And he then hops off to ChatGPT and creates the prompt and writes a funding bid for you. Policies, purely a personal thing. I have tried to get it to write policies. I really haven't had that much success. It will write your policy. It will always do that. It will be pretty generic and Janet and John, and generally that's not what you need. So within Charity Excellence, what I do is all the policies are written by me and you can download them from within the system. I haven't really had any success writing policies. This is out of date. I understand it's now more up to date, but you can't do a pestle on my charity if you haven't got up-to-date data. You can't ask it for the latest prices of CRMs, and you can't ask it for a list of organizations because it probably still thinks that Virgin Money's around, but they're not. So it's not up to date. You need to think about that. Privacy issues. What all of these guys want is more and more and more data from you. And that's the opt-in. Is the default. You can opt out. My personal rule for anything to do with any of these is I will not enter any sensitive personal information, and I will not enter any financial information. I just don't. I don't want to read a 300-page terms and conditions thing. So I never put this in. This is one you really want to watch out for. 50% of people have tried this. If your staff of volunteers are entering things like beneficiary reports and appraisals, they're sharing it with the world, you're in breach of the Data Protection Act. And prospect research, guardrails. You can break the guardrails, sadly. But you need to think about this. So I went into it and I said, okay, give me all the companies and bucks that donate to charities, and I would like the chief executives and the board members. And they went, nah, not going to do that because it's personal. But when I went back and said, actually, could you give me all those companies again, but could you give me the business email address and business telephone number? It was happy about that. And then I went back and said, could you tell me how I can find out the names of chief executives of companies? Perfectly happy with that. So it's the way you kind of approach it. You need to think about it. It was the same as celebrities. Give me a list of celebrities who promote mental health, guys like Monty Don, etc. And it went, yeah, sure, here you go. Won't give me their names and addresses. It won't give me their addresses and contacts, but it will tell me all about them. And I can then go back in and say, well, actually, could you tell me how I would get in contact with someone like Monty Don? And it will come back and explain to you how to use agencies. So think about how you engage with it. It will not do it all for you. There is no big red button. A lot of the things that I get with the bunnies struggle to answer people is they'll say things like funding bid. You can't walk up to a fundraiser and say funding bid because the fundraiser can't write one. What do you have to do? You have to tell the fundraiser all the information about the funding bid, exactly the same as the bid bunny. So, it's not magic. It's a tool. How can it help charities? The blank page problem is great. Boss says to you, I want you to organise this year's Christmas fair, and you go, I haven't got a Scooby-Doo's, never done it. You go into ChatGPT and say, could you help me with a fair? Or I've been told I need to increase our income by X and I'm a charity. Could you give me some ideas on how to do that? Just ask it if you don't know. Creating those ideas. Could you give me ideas for stalls at a Christmas fair or fundraising ideas? Yeah, it's great for that because there's huge amounts of information about Christmas fairs out there on the internet. That's perfect. Analysis, review and compare. First training course I did was for a Money for You. Big fan of them. Do like the people that fight for the ethnic minorities. And a lady came up and she said, we've been told we have to get a social media management system. Don't know anything about them. And I went, that's fine. Sit down. Would you give me a list of all of the social media management systems suitable for a small UK charity, including the free ones? Bang. Would you contrast and compare and give me the pros and cons for each of them? Bang. And would you recommend the best one for me? Bang. Done. And I did ask for prices. Obviously, they were out of date, but if it was really expensive in 2021, it's probably still really expensive now. Summarise. Mental health charity, you've got cracking new report coming from the medics, full of medics gobbledygook. So what you say to ChatGPT is, could you turn this into a 500-word charity board report that's in an authoritative tone, but actually I want it not using any technical language. Could you turn this into 200 words for my webpage? Could you turn it into 100 words for my newsletter? Could you turn this into tweets for me? Actually, I don't know a lot about social media. Our people are mainly young people. Could you tell me which platforms I find young people on? Could you write me some things for those platforms? Could you tell me the days and times that it's best for them to run on those platforms? On and on and on and on. And it will just do it. Having fun and spotting your creativity. The apocryphal tale is the computer guy who had to brief the board. Everybody hates IT. And so he said, can you rewrite my presentation in the style of Yoda? Apparently it went down a storm. You can have fun with this thing. So what is Charity Excellence ChatGPT, the launchpad? Bid writing. If you know nothing about ChatGPT and you don't know how to write a fundraising bid, log into the system, speak to the bunny, answer its questions. It will write the funding bid for you. Easy peasy. ChatGPT prompt. If you want to try it and you really don't do tech, log in, click his prompt button, select the bits that he's got offer for you, tell him what you want. He'll hop off to ChatGPT and he will run the prompt for you and he'll bring it back to you and he'll email the results to you. Now, make a note of stuff before you put it in. ChatGPT, they've burned the servers out, they've done all sorts. Sometimes it just falls over. If it falls over when the bunny's trying to get it to them, we lose it. So make sure you hang on to it. Getting started with ChatGPT, my first online guide, basically how to register it. How to register on OpenAI, how to use it, basic troubleshooting about the things you run into. Oven ready ChatGPT. As you can see, I don't take things seriously. I keep being told I need to show more gravitas to be a respected senior leader in the charity sector. I can't see me as an senior leader in the charity sector, and I don't really do gravitas terribly well. What I did is I just went and played with the bloody thing. And I came up and I went, what would the guys want? And I just kept writing prompts, and every time I failed, I changed it to something else until I came up with a great big list of charity prompts that are the kind of things that you guys like that work. See, we're not very clever. And Pick and Mix ChatGPT breaks out the various components of ChatGPT, gives you a whole series of ideas of the kind of things that you can do. So now the idea is you come in, you try it, and you go, yeah, okay, I've got this. It's a bit restrictive for me. I'm going to start with ChatGPT. I'm going to move on to the library. I've got the library. It's a bit too restrictive. Let me have a look at this. I've got this. Thank you very much. I know more about using ChatGPT than Charity Excellence. Goodbye. Don't need to see you guys any longer. For us, big result. What we want is the charity sector let loose on this. We don't need it. There are too many empires in this world. So, are you a real bunny? I get lots of this coming in. This is Mini Me. Mini Me lives on the website. Mini Me looks after individuals and families. We are handling thousands and thousands of sessions with people now. We're getting children using them, and people think the bunnies are real, so this is what we give them back. They are actually real. They're upstairs having lunch at the moment, so they don't interrupt the webinar. What happens with webinars is if I don't feed them before the webinar, they take their metal food dish and they bang it on the floor just out of range, so I have to interrupt the webinar to go and get them food. So feed them first. That's the key thing. How to use it. I just do not enter sensitive personal and financial data. I just don't. You type prompts into the taskbar at the bottom. Literally, guys, that's it. This is a new way of working. Regenerate response. If what the bunny or ChatGPT's written for you, you think, yeah, it's all right, but you could do better than that. Click it. It'll start it and do it all over again. And the follow-on questions. This is where the real power in it is. What I often find is when I ask it a question, I don't get it quite right. It comes back with an answer, and it's, no, that's not quite what I wanted. And so I'll ask it in a different way until I do get the kind of answer. And then you can follow it on. Okay, how would I do that? Write me a plan. Summarize that board report again, but exclude this, or make this higher profile, make this bit less profile, increase the words by 100. You can just keep, and that is that ongoing conversation, and you just go on and on and on. And if you get stuck on anything to do with AI or ChatGPT, ask a bunny. The bunnies are quite happy to talk about stochastic parrots. They're quite happy to talk about issues you have with GPT and say, look, this is what you need to think about, what you need to go. Bunnies are very helpful. They can answer about 20,000 questions now. So, writing prompts. Do this. Review it. Summarize it. Compare it. Create it. Write it. What do you want? A list, an email, a letter, a leaflet. Style. I want this in an authoritative style. So what you don't see is when the bunny runs off to write your funding bid, it says to them, I want this to be written in a compelling and emotionally engaging way. That's how it works. And exclude it. no more than 50 words between this and that, or at least this many words, or not including that, or making sure that this is brought to the forefront. And who's this for? It's a global system. So you need to say things like a UK local community group, or you're a regional charity, or you're a UK large registered charity. If you ask it for fundraising ideas and you tell it you're a large registered charity, you may get a colour run. If you don't, and you're two people and a dog running at the community centre, it might give you a colour run if you haven't told it that you're a tiny little charity. Very, very precise. How to get it right. Tell it what it doesn't know about your charity but needs to. If you want to write a funding bid, it's fine. But you actually have to put all the stuff it needs to write into it. If you do that, it won't hallucinate because you've given it what it needs to. Its data isn't fully up to date, and stay within the guardrails. So think about how you ask it. So no, it's not going to give you the personal names of the chief executives. Yes, it will tell you how to get them. Clear, specific instructions that minimize misinterpretation. The classic AI one, salmon swimming in a river. And what the AI image generated was a slice of Tesco salmon swimming up a river. And everybody goes, isn't the AI really stupid? And the answer is no, it gave you what you asked for. What you should have asked for is a salmon who's a fish swimming in a river, and then it would have been okay. That's the difference between us and it. And be explicit in what you do and don't want. So this is good for board papers or anything like that. It's written it, but the bit that you know is important to your people is down near the bottom. And at the top, it's put all the stuff about legal compliance that nobody wants to read. So what you just say to it, I just want you to do it the other way around. And treat everything as a draft. For example, if you didn't read the slide title above, you should. So I did one for a veterans charity, and it came back and it talked about grateful for your service. In a US context, that would have been fine. In a British Army context, it absolutely isn't. It just went vaguely American. It will spell in American with Zs unless you ask it to. It will make little mistakes like that will just spoil your work. It's all a draft. You would not send a paper to your board without checking it. ChatGPT is no different. So,
Ian,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt. We're getting to the end of your time, and we have loads and loads of questions that people would like. I don't know if you want to rush through the rest of the slides, or I think that because there's some really interesting questions now, maybe we can take some questions. And just to let everybody know that the presentation will be available to download on demand by the end of the week. Anything that Ian's missed. Ian, is there anything that you can wrap up very, very quickly in your slides so we can move to the Q&A?
What I'll do, I suggest if you kick the Q&A off, I will just run a query in ChatGPT so you can actually see what the beast looks like.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ian. That has been absolutely fantastic. And I know that people will really, really be interested in viewing what you have. I can see that you're running the ChatGPT query now as we speak. So let me jump immediately to one question, Ian.
Yep.
AI is picking up stuff from the internet is no guarantee of accuracy or truth. How and where does one separate out the false, the frauds, and the scam from what you're actually being told?
It's not taking it from the internet, it's taking it from its data set, but the data sets are all scraped from the internet. So they should have cleaned them up. And it can come through with things that are just wrong. And you basically have to check it. What you will not get is ChatGPT sending you scams. ChatGPT goes out into the data set, looks for the best data and information for you, works it all out and brings it back to you. So it's not like you being on the internet, but it's that kind of scale of information. But you must check the detail. And the kind of things I've done is I had one for data protection. It came back and gave me an answer. And I wasn't totally sure and I needed it to be right. And I said, could you give me the URL you got that from? And it does.
Well, Thank you. That actually answers one of the questions that were asked, because I think that that's exactly to verify is how do you actually verify? And that was one of the questions to add URL. Very quick question, Ian. What is a color run? Anna Page has asked, what is a color run?
It's done by the hospices. They
Oh,
do a
okay.
lot of it. It's just a type of fundraising event.
Thank you very much. Thank you. One of the other questions somebody else asked is there's a question about when you go back into ChatGPT, it doesn't seem to be forgets all the information. Polly asked, ChatGPT-4 forgets all the info fed in after each session closes. How can I quickly give it the lowdown so I don't need to upload loads of detailed information on the organization every single time? So basically, every single time you move away from the chat, it seems that you've got to reintroduce it and redo it. So she's just asking, how does one manage that so that you don't have to keep reiterating?
What I would have is I would have a simple set of information about your charity. I would run that as a query. On here, on the left, you can see my previous queries that I've run. Here's the one on the UK Women's Charity. And what you can do is you can just pick it up and you can just drop it in. But once you start a new one, you've started a new one.
Thank you. Another question from Anonymous. What about the ethical considerations? ChatGPT has been linked with taking and using copyrighted material, as have others. How do we even begin with verifying what we get if AI can't do it itself? Is this back to the URL sense checking, or is there another way in?
You can do that, and you know, for example, there's fair use, and there is also open government things. But it is taking stuff. You know, it would take, say, my crypto fundraising briefing off my website, do something with it, and give it to someone else. Well, that's my copyright. So in effect, it's difficult. When I'm doing it, for example, if I'm taking it off government things, I'll take that's fine. I did one on investment policy. I dropped into CAF, and if you go and read my investment policy, I'm always very honest. And I think we all need to do this, and it's part of our ethics framework. Is you will see in the investment policy, it will say this policy was part written with the use of ChatGPT. Be warned, this is it, partially AI, guys, and it was in part taken from the CAF investment advice briefing note, and here's the link. So I'm being absolutely clear. I've got this here, yet actually I'm pretty certain it's taken it from this area over here, but I'm being honest about that, and I'm putting the link and I'm sending people back to the source document. Now, is that the right answer? I think this argument around copyright is going to run for years and years and years. I'm just trying to find my way through it.
Okay, something that's very interesting. Polly Perkins has just asked, loving the question. I'm also concerned that using ChatGPT is enfeebling and getting one out of the habit of generating without assistance. How can I guard against this? I think this is quite an interesting question that you become so reliant.
That's a very clever question, and actually it's in our risk assessment. In one sense, what you want to do with it is to remove what's known as digital debt. So I will use it for the kind of things that I can do, but it just takes up a huge amount of time and wastes my time, and it saves me. There are issues around critical thinking. Critical thinking is absolutely fundamental to humans. So if you think when they brought Excel in, we all used to be able to add up in our heads, and we can't now. Well, that's not that big a problem. But lack of critical thinking, that is a very big problem, because that's when you decide whether you're going to press a launch button on the nuclear weapons. It's also about when you decide whether you're going to buy nappies in Tesco's. Everybody uses it. Everybody needs it. And one of the risks around AI is we let the AI start doing the thinking for us, and we lose that critical thinking. And that's pretty good, because that actual risk identification came out of a lady doctor from MIT Robotics, which is one of the top universities in the world. So very good question.
Wonderful and interesting. Your opinion, Ian. Esther asks and says she's tried ChatGPT and Bard, but found Bard data more updated. What do you think about Bard?
Bards, I think they're racing neck and neck, and they change all the time. So what it is today, it won't be tomorrow. I think one of the big advantages of Bard is it will actually give you a list of sources. So when you ask a question, it will give you the answer, and then it will go where it got the stuff from, and it makes checking it much easier.
Oh, thank you very much. And I think we're getting to the end of the Q&A. So one quick question. Can you eliminate American spelling or just ask it to spell check?
Yes and no. We write into the auto prompts that we want it in English spelling, and we say UK English spelling because if you say English spelling, it still thinks it's American. And that works most of the time. And then it will run one and it will come through with organization with a Z. But you also get cultural stuff in there. That veterans one, thank you for your service is very, very, very American, spelled in English, but it came through, and when you read it, it had an American flavor to it. So you want to watch for that as well.
Thank you very much, Ian. Just a couple more. One question, can funders run a piece of software to see if AI has been used and would go against an application?
I could talk about this for ages. I do not
Sorry.
believe. I know.
And we don't have that. Thank you, Ian.
That using ChatGPT is unethical in terms of funding bids, and I can explain it all in detail. I think it will level the playing field. But in terms of identifying it, mainly it's around the universities and the plagiarism. What they found is they're pretty much withdrawing the software that they created to identify plagiarism because it really wasn't working terribly well. And frankly, you can get around that anyway. And this is one of my arguments. So I'm a big fundraising agency. What I do is I get a bunch of interns. They use all the ChatGPT. They write all the funding bids. My now much smaller list of expert bid writers then ghostwrite them, and there is no way you would ever be able to tell.
That has been truly, truly, truly fascinating. Thank you so much, Ian, for a wonderful session. Again, because Ian didn't get to the end of his presentation, it will be available on demand by the end of the week. So as we wrap up, there are some other questions. If we did not get to your question, please reach out directly to Ian, either via the chat or the speaker booth. So just to conclude, thank you very much, Ian, to you and to everybody who attended. It has been fantastic. Please, can you rate this session by selecting the stars underneath the session title? And again, the session will be available on demand. Please feel free now to take a comfort break before we start our next session, and check out our partners booths and our very own charity digital booth in the partners section. We will paste the link shortly in the chat. Don't forget to add your thoughts onto our social media using hashtag Charity Digital Summit on LinkedIn, Facebook, or X. And once you've taken your comfort break, please join our networking session. That's the little armchair icon in the top where you can chat with your peers. And last but not least, please don't forget that our next session will begin in 15 minutes at 13:45, where we will be exploring the importance of getting funding for digital projects and how charities can remove the barriers to asking for it. Once again, thank you very much to you all, and to Ian, it was truly fascinating.
And have a final one from me is, when you chat to the bunnies, do not mention the vets or fatal attractions because they get really hissy. If you do make that mistake, change the subject to carrots. They will be all over you, I guarantee. Thank you.
That has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you very, very much, Ian. And on that very, very fascinating note, and promise to be kind to the bunnies. Have a good afternoon. See you soon.